So, what if I told you that almost half of your day is being run by a hidden script? I'm talking about an invisible force that dictates a huge chunk of your actions without you even noticing. Well, we're about to pull back the curtain on that force. We're talking about your habits and how they are quite literally shaping the life you live. Take a look at this number, 40%. That's a lot. According to researchers at Duke University, that's how much of what we do every single day isn't based on conscious decisions. It's just habit. Let that sink in for a second. A massive part of your life is essentially running on autopilot. So, you gotta ask, right? What is this invisible force? What's at the wheel for nearly half of your waking hours? Well, the answer is something we all do, every day, but something we very rarely actually think about. It's your habits. Simple as that. We're talking about all the small, seemingly tiny decisions you make and the little actions you perform day in and day out. From how you get out of bed, to the route you take to work, to what you do to unwind at night. All of it. They're the building blocks of your entire routine. And here is where a pretty simple idea becomes incredibly profound. Because all those little automatic actions, they have enormous consequences. Let's really dive into just how deeply your habits are defining your reality. The author James Clear just nails it with this quote. It's a really powerful idea when you think about it. The life you have right this second, it's not the result of some big, dramatic, overnight transformation. Nope. It's the cumulative results of thousands of tiny habits just stacked on top of each other, day after day after day. So here's the bottom line. Your habits directly create your outcomes in life. I mean, look at these. Your physical fitness, that's just the sum of your daily eating and exercise habits. Your overall happiness. So often, that's a direct result of your mindset habits, like practicing gratitude. And your success? Well, that's just a reflection of your productivity and learning habits. It's all connected. Okay, so if habits are that powerful, the real question becomes, how do we get in the driver's seat? How do we stop being run by this old script and, start writing a new one for ourselves? Let's get into the toolkit, and we'll start with the single most effective way to think about creating change that actually sticks. The key, the real secret, is to stop focusing on the outcome and start focusing on your identity. So instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, which is an outcome, you reframe it as, I am a healthy person. Instead of, I want to write a book, it becomes, I am a writer. So why does this work so well? Because you're no longer just chasing some distant goal, you're actually becoming a new type of person with every small action. The goal isn't the finish line, the goal is to be the kind of person who would naturally cross it. Of course, building good habits is only half the battle. To make room for that new identity, we often have to tear down the old programming that's holding us back. So let's switch gears and look at some seriously effective strategies for breaking those bad habits. One of the most powerful strategies doesn't even involve willpower. Research, like the famous study on Vietnam vets who kicked heroin addictions just by coming home, shows that radically changing your environment is an absolute game changer. And why is that? Because most bad habits are triggered by something in our surroundings. If you can remove the trigger, you basically starve the craving before it even starts. Another amazing tool that makes things easier is using what are called bright line rules. This goes right back to that identity idea. It just means creating a super clear, simple, non-negotiable standard for yourself. So instead of a fuzzy goal like, I'll try to eat healthier, a bright line rule is, I don't drink soda. See the difference? There's no gray area, no wiggle room. It completely eliminates that exhausting debate you have with yourself in the moment. All right, so we've talked about building good ones and breaking bad ones, but the real challenge for so many of us, maybe the biggest challenge of all, is just consistency. How do we keep going when that initial motivation wears off and, life happens? I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You get a great streak going, everything's clicking, and then one busy week comes along and throws everything completely off track. So what's the secret? How do you stick with it when things inevitably get chaotic? Well, the answer can be surprisingly simple and, honestly, pretty low-tech. It's called the paperclip strategy, and it is a brilliant, tangible way to make your progress visible. It creates this really satisfying feedback loop that just makes you want to keep going. Here's how it works. It's so simple. You get two jars. One is full of paper clips, let's say 100 of them for 100 workouts you want to do. The other jar starts empty. Every single time you finish your workout, you just move one paper clip over to the other jar. That simple physical act of seeing your progress, watching that pile of clips grow, gives you this immediate hit of satisfaction and makes you want to not break the chain. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We've gone from understanding the massive power of our habits all the way to learning practical strategies for building them, breaking them, and making them stick. Let's boil all of this down into a few key things you can start using, like today. If you remember nothing else, remember these three things. First, your daily habits are the architects of your future. They truly shape your entire life. Second, willpower is fickle. A much better bet is to design your environment for success. And finally, start with a change that is so small you can't possibly say no, and then find a way to make your progress impossible to ignore, just like with those paper clips. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. Forget about trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. That never works. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is one tiny 1% improvement you can make? What's the one single paper clip you can move from one jar to the other, starting right now?